It's been confusing. It is scary, serious threat. So I will continue to do my job. I do think Congress ought to be a part of this, of whatever decisions that were being made. I do think my hope is with the State Department, as that gets more people there serving in different important spots, that we'll be able to continue to build relationships with friends, making sure that our allies know that we are going to stick with them. I still think that is our best course, is to make sure that we're not doing things alone, that we are teaming up, certainly in the Middle East, with some of our best friends. Israel has been an incredible friend, Jordan, Egypt, some of these areas, making sure that we are reaching out to them, that we are working with them where possible. I think it makes much more sense for them to take the lead and for us to be supportive of work that they do to bring stability to a very unstable region. I also think, we need to see, my hope is with China, I've got real concerns there, but my hope is that maybe China can put some additional pressure on North Korea to change how they're acting as well.
As a fiscal conservative, this is written by someone in the room, I am concerned about debt and deficit. Trump is on course to spend in 1 year what Obama spent in both terms on golf trips. What is your opinion of this waste, and what can Congress do about it?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about it. I never questioned or, I know that in the past different presidents have traveled, and we're going to have to look at this. It is very expensive, and it's important, again, we're going to keep looking at it. There's going to be budgets passed. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to make sure that money isn't wasted. My money, your money isn't wasted, that there's accountability there. I do think I'm not opposed to presidents traveling. I think it has to happen. I think they have to have security with them. I'll continue to support their security. But I think there has to be a reasonabableness to it, and we'll continue to watch it. For me, it's way too early to say that this is unacceptable.
I'm sorting through some additional questions on different topics. Back to education. It has been suggested that ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, may be revoked or repealed. Do you support ESSA? Why or why not?
Yeah, I absolutely support it's Every Student Succeeds Act. Phenomenal response to No Child Left Behind. The idea of No Child Left Behind was good, but didn't work. So many failing school districts, so much testing, so many problems with this, so many mandates that came down was really a problem, wasn't working. The Every Student Succeeds Act, I think, is an example that doesn't get a lot of attention of some really good work that we have done as a Congress with the administration over the past couple of years. And this was really Congress taking the initiative on this one. But I'm so proud of my colleagues on the Education and Workforce Committee, reaching out with other committees, Democrats and Republicans working together from the very beginning of saying, this current No Child Left Behind isn't working, it's failing. And we've got to see some changes there. And they crafted something, the Every Student Succeeds Act, that I think is absolutely the right direction to go. Reestablishes a lot of local control. Still has help, and this is where I think there are places where federal government does have to provide some help, where there is places where they just cannot sustain a local school district themselves. And in a state like Illinois, where there's not any help coming from Springfield, there has to be that ultimate backstop of making sure ultimately that kids have the opportunity to learn. So I think the Every Student Succeeds Act was very positive, something that passed, I think it was like 400 yes votes on it. So it was very, very positive, very, very strong, very, very bipartisan. And there's other things that we've done as well, some transportation things that we've done, and a lot of other work that really has been coming together in a bipartisan way. So we can do it, we just need to have more of that.
Okay, thank you. Why did you vote to repeal the stream protection rule, which required a 100-foot buffer between coal mining and streams? It also would have required, let me finish please, it also would have required mining companies to restore streams and mined areas to a state similar to what existed prior to mining. Why would you vote against protecting water from coal mining pollution? Why does this benefit the constituents in your district?
Well, here's where it benefits. I don't have any coal mines in my district, but I do have a lot of farmers. I've got many farmers who are very concerned about significant overreach with the waters of the U.S. So this is tying that of really an overreach by EPA coming in and taking, for instance, streams, puddles, things like that. This was another thing that was a last-minute rule. Again, I think if the administration, I support the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act still is there. Nothing has changed with the Clean Water Act. Every single state, every single locality, if someone is dumping into rivers, it's illegal. If a mining company is dumping into rivers, it's illegal. It's already against the law. The law is there. The law is there. Look at the law. So I support the law. I support Clean Water Act.
Please.
And we'll continue.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
fine.
Congressman Hultgren.
Thank you.
We cannot have this screaming out. Please do not scream out in that manner. It is not civil. And it is disturbing the others in the group who are trying to listen to the answers. So please, I implore you to please stop that. Medicare is financed, this is about Medicare. Should those who are financially able to pay higher Medicare premiums than they currently do to keep the system solvent in the future? So the question is, should those who are able to pay higher Medicare premiums than they currently do to keep the system solvent in the future, is that something you would support?
My commitment is that we've got to strengthen Medicare. I don't want it to change. I want it to be strong. I want people who are on Medicare to make sure that it's there. I think my biggest concern is, again, for them to have coverage but not care. I want to make sure that they've got both. And I want to make sure that, that Medicare is strong, that it's financially solid. I think anything in my commitment continues, has been and will be, that I want to make sure that anybody who is on Medicare can continue to be on it, that there's no question that it's there for them, that it's strong, that it's going to provide, that they're going to be able to see the doctors that they want to see. I think there's a lot of positives that are there, and I'll continue to support that. I think if there is any other discussions, I'm getting closer to the age of 55, and I've always said I want to make sure that we don't do anything that would affect anybody 55 and older, whether it's Medicaid or Medicare or Social Security. But you know, I think the cruelest thing, absolutely the cruelest thing we could do is say it's fine, don't worry about it, everything will be great, and then have something where it isn't, where there isn't the resources there for someone who needs that care. So I want to make sure that that care is strong. I'm going to do everything that I can to fight for our seniors. That's been my commitment all the way along, and I'll continue to do that. So just out of the blue, no, I won't support that right now. If there is a larger package for people who are younger, I want to see it. But as far as having you know, so I guess it's like a stepped up of paying for it right now. To me, that's a change in Medicare. In and of itself, I won't support it. If it's part of a larger discussion, let's talk about it. I'll take a look at it. And if it's for people who are younger going into that, I've made that commitment that I'm not going to change it for people who are on Medicare. I want it to stay the same. I just want to make sure it's financially sound.
Okay. League of Women Voters is all about transparency, and this is a question that gets to that issue. The Trump administration just ruled that it will no longer release White House visitors' logs. What is your position on this?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I'm for transparency as well. I talked about it with even loan amounts, making sure that students have full transparency and they know what they're getting into. So, and I think with White House, this is our house. This is the people's house. I mean, we talk about that really as Congress is that way, but ultimately the White House is as well. Unless, you know, I don't know if there's some confidential meeting or something like that, but I would think there's already provision for that. But to say that there's not going to be released, I think it's a mistake.
We're getting back to a tax reform question. Entitlements for the wealthy and corporations in our country are much more than entitlements for the poor and the average person. Will you commit to keep social programs for the poor and middle class and reduce the entitlements for the wealthy? For example, one that's put on here is carried interest tax rate for hedge fund owners.
Two parts. One is with tax reform. We'll see what comes. I think we ought to lessen benefits for people with lots of resources, and I hear that there's an openness from them to do that. I think we ought to make sure that the tax code is focused on hardworking, tax-paying folks, people who are just working hard, trying to support their families. That is who are being punished most by the tax code and get the least benefits with the current loopholes that are in there that have been written in over decades. It is way too complex, way too confusing. It is. It's wrong. Where the more resources you have, the more attorneys you can hire, the less you pay. I'd like to see that change. I think it needs to be fairer, flatter. I think it has to be recognizing younger, that people with less resources should pay less. And then getting to the second part of it, after just doing my own taxes, I'd love for it to be easier. I think it ought to be simpler to be able to file our taxes. A lot of other countries do a much better job of doing that. I think we could too. As far as protecting programs, I've said that. I'll continue to fight to protect, specifically, and talked about programs for seniors and people with disabilities, but other programs as well. I want to make sure that they're truly serving the people that need the help the most. And that is really the idea of these programs, and I'll continue to fight for them. With everything, there's abuse, and we need to hold them accountable, making sure that people who are trying to game the system, that we're finding that out. There continues to be a lot of abuse with some of these programs, but there's some core people that absolutely need to continue to be served, and I'll fight for them and make sure that those programs are still there and working for them and solving.
In your 2016 campaign, you did not hold any debates with your Democratic challenger. Why not? And do you agree to hold debates for the 2018 election, preferably in each of the 7 counties of the 14th district?
That's just not true. We did have debates. We had debates in Kendall County. We had debates other places that some that I went to that he didn't come to, and that's okay. It's prerogative of people if they want to come. But we had multiple debate opportunities. We'll continue to do that. We'll see what happens in 2018. I enjoy them. I think it's a good opportunity to be able to see differences of candidates. I'm confident with that. I just want people to know who I am, what I stand for, what my character is, how I go through a decision-making process, and I think that will influence how they're going to vote. And I think I want more people engaged in the election process. I think that's a positive thing. And anything that we can do to get more people involved. I do think it's sad coming off of municipal elections and seeing very dismal turnout in certain places. And we need to continue to talk about this, that I believe voting is a right, but even more than that, it's a responsibility. That we have a responsibility to do our homework, to know about the candidates, to find out who they are, what they stand for, what they're like, and then get out and vote. And then to be able to feel like we were a part of that, whether our candidate wins or not.
The election of Donald Trump represented a revolt against the years of gridlock in Congress. The only good thing I can see, this is from a writer of the question again, coming out of it would be that Republicans and Democrats would try to work together for the good of the country. Are you willing to compromise with Democrats to stop the gridlock?
I've said we already have with this Every Student Succeeds Act, with the caucuses that I'm a part of. Yes, absolutely. I started my work public service on the county board in DuPage County. Had the opportunity to serve down in Springfield. I was in the minority and super minority while I was down in Springfield, and yet was able to pass literally dozens and dozens of bills. The only way I could do that was to have Democratic co-sponsors. I continue to do that, where the first thing we'll do if we have a new idea, I've talked about this Student Aid Financial Transparency Act. The first thing we did was, before we filed it, say we want to have Democratic co-sponsorship on this. So the things that can pass. I also mentioned Encouraging Employee Ownership Act. This is something that just passed through the entire House last week. It's passed out of the Senate committee. I think it's going to pass the Senate. But this is a good thing for employees. It's going to allow them to have more potential ownership in the company that they work for. It's a very positive thing. We had, again, Republican support. We also had Nancy Pelosi voted for it, Steny Hoyer voted for it, but I worked with John Delaney, Democrat from Maryland. He and I worked very, very closely on this. So it's important to me. I believe that if you're going to get something done that's going to last, it's got to be bipartisan. We saw that with things over the last administration. I'm going to continue to encourage that in the current administration, that really long-term solutions, like hopefully the Every Student Succeeds Act, the WRDA bill, the transportation bill, long-term surface reauthorization and transportation. These were done with very, very strong bipartisan support. But it has to start from the very beginning of saying, I'm not going to get everything I want, you're not going to get everything you want. How can we find a way to move forward so that we can have good things for the people we represent? Not 100%, but maybe 70 or 80%. And I think, this doesn't get covered very much as well either, but I bet you in the average week, 80% of the things that we vote on get pretty much unanimous bipartisan support. And there's 20% of the things that we're fighting over. And that's, the news, the media picks up the stuff that we're arguing over, and that's okay. That's the difference. That's why elections are important. But there is many, many things that we're working together on that I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to make sure that as we're putting together bills that we think are going to make a difference, that we want to see passed, that we're going to reach out and make sure that we've got Democratic co-sponsorship on that.
There was a recent vote relating to funding of Planned Parenthood, and we would like to hear from you what position you took on that bill and why.
Yes, I am pro-life. It's something that I believe in, but I also realize people have different opinions on that. But to me, it gets to where taxpayer dollars are going, and I think a big part of what America is about is making sure that people's consciences aren't violated, that their taxpayer dollars are used for something. I mentioned something earlier. This is what I voted on.
Let us hear from the congressman, please.
This is what we voted on, and one of my concerns with Planned Parenthood is I don't have one in my district. In Illinois, there's 670 community health centers. There's 18 Planned Parenthood centers. 670 community health centers. Community health centers provide total care. I talked about this Greater Elgin Community Health Center. Please take a look at it. See what you think. These are really good people, not political, not partisan, just serving people, helping people who need health care. And they provide the full gamut of care. They provide prenatal care, which is really important, which isn't being provided right now. They provide mammograms, which isn't being provided. It's not being provided by Planned Parenthood. So I think it's much better. Look at it. Mammograms are not covered.
You lie!
Prenatal is not covered. But they're covered, all coverage, children, boys, girls, men, women are covered at these community health centers. I want to see the money go there. It's in my district. It's more accessible. It's something where the people that I represent, we talk about it representing the people who are in our district. I'm opposed to again, violating people's consciences and some of the abortion activity that Planned Parenthood does violates people's consciences. Vast majority of people, of Americans say, taxpayer dollars shouldn't be used for not in this room. I said Americans. I said vast majority of Americans.
Everybody, if you could please settle down. We got our answer. If you continue to do the yelling and interrupting, we will be finished this evening. We'd like to get a few more questions in. If we could please ask you to please not interrupt and yell. Thank you. Would you support a constitutional amendment to limit or provide transparency in campaign finance? And a follow-up, how much money have you received from the NRA, from PACs, and other large donors?
Yeah, again, I support full financial disclosure. We're a part of it. We just filed our financial disclosure. I encourage you to look at it. It shows everybody who's given us levels. Whatever the entity is capped. They can't give any more than an individual, unless it's a larger PAC, but even then it's very limited. I forget the amount. I think it's $10,000 in an election cycle where an individual can give $5,400 per person. So I do support full disclosure. I'm concerned if there is absolute limitation on how much people can donate, that the only people who are going to be running for office are multimillionaires, and I think that's a problem. So I think it is, the thing that can break that is the ability for people to continue to support candidates that they want to support.
So, it's just as a follow-up, would you support a constitutional amendment to limit the amount that can be given in campaigns?
It's already there. Now, where it isn't, super PACs are not, and I think that is a huge problem that we're going to have to talk about. I think super PACs are a problem, and both sides have abused it, and I think there needs to be much more transparency with that. But when you're talking about individual candidate donations, it's already there. There's clear limits. The Federal Election Commission is very strong, very strict, very proactive to making sure that every candidate is abiding by that. There's scrubbing of every single disclosure that we do. And again, it's out there, it's open, anybody can look at it.
Except for the president.
I would suggest you look at his disclosures.
I would too. I think it's certainly below the 10,000. It's between 5 and 10,000. I think between 5 and 10,000. Yes.
The budget is set to expire April 28th. Will you fund the government from April 28th to September 30th to avoid a government shutdown? Will you vote for that?
Well, I want to see what it's going to be. I want to make sure that things aren't put into it that we haven't been told about, which has happened in past times in these type of government shutdown situations. I want to make sure that we don't shut down. I think it's very counterproductive. I don't think it's healthy for us. So my intention is to support making sure that things can continue, that government services can continue. But I want to make sure that stuff isn't snuck in there, as we've seen sometimes in the past where things were snuck in. And ultimately, we do have to have this larger discussion about the debt limit. We're right at about $20 trillion. I do think it's unfair to our kids and our grandkids by having this level of debt that we're placing on our kids and our grandkids. We've got to work a way through that.
We have 2 follow-up questions, and then I'm going to do one final question. You voted to block a resolution requiring disclosure of President Trump's tax returns. Can you explain that vote?
Yeah, it was a procedural vote. We have them literally every single day around in Washington, D.C. I won't support a procedural vote for that. I talked about ex post facto law. It's very clear. I went to law school. It's a big part of our law. And so to require, again, it was a procedural vote. I voted, and it was very important. It's happened several times where these types of procedures have been used. And I know when we were in the minority, we tried to do this as well, using these type of procedural votes. But again, I supported the final legislation that was being voted on, and I felt like this was an inappropriate time to do it. I've already said to you, I'm open to having a law for future elections to make sure that this is part of the law.
Okay, we've got that answer. Thank you, Congressman Hultgren. As a follow-up to the Planned Parenthood question, federal tax money currently cannot be used for Planned Parenthood, by Planned Parenthood, for abortions. They can be used, please, they can be used for all other health services. Why not support those services?
Well, I do support those services. Money is fungible, and I think it's already been offered that if Planned Parenthood would stop doing abortions, that absolutely we would support continuing money. Until that happens, I'm going to continue to support community health centers that are in my district that are providing all the care that people need. Look at these community health centers, take a look at them, go visit. This is the right place for this money to go.
If the president's campaign advisors are shown to have colluded with Russia during the last year's election and the president knew about it, would you consider beginning impeachment proceedings?
I'm going to do my job. Whatever my job requires, I will do my job. So I will not answer a hypothetical question like that. I'm going to do my job.
It's not hypothetical. It is hypothetical. No.
What specifically do you do to determine constituent views on an issue? Do these views influence your vote, or do you always vote your personal opinion?
Absolutely, has a huge influence on us. We listen to constituents. We ask for information. I'm back in the district every single weekend. My family is here. Offices are here. We are out talking with people, listening to people. So it depends. There's certain issues where we're seeking feedback. We're wanting to hear from them. There's other things where I'm realizing I'm getting information where there's a disconnect, where people maybe don't understand why I'm voting a certain way, to make sure that we're getting information out there.
And
so I listen to my constituents. We have to remember, though, you know, we talk about a democracy. We're really a constitutional republic. We are representative government where I'm elected to not take a poll for every vote that we take and determine what the majority of my district says, but to do the best of my ability to get the information that I need. Oftentimes it is connecting with constituents, especially when they have a specialty, a specialization. So I'm meeting with doctors all the time, meeting with providers, healthcare providers, meeting with my physicists. I'm at Fermilab at least once a month to hear from them of what we can do. They're out in Washington, D.C. quite a bit. So I hear from my constituents. It influences my thinking and ultimately does have an influence on my vote.
And what is the most effective form of constituent advocacy?
Protest. No. That's not true. So I honestly think, and there's people in this room, there's some people that I've seen that we disagree on a lot of things, but we have some incredible conversations. I've learned from them. They've changed my way of thinking on some things. So I think it is helping us have information. I think it is having a basic level of respect, of recognizing that democracy is messy, that it's give and take, that we're not going to agree on 100% of things. But if we respect each other, if we're willing to talk, if we're willing to listen and learn, good things are going to happen. And so I still think the best way is meeting. I think the second best way is writing a letter. A handwritten letter. I think the third best way is making a phone call. I think the fourth best way is an email, because we just get so many emails that come in. So that would be the most effective way, is for us to have a chance to meet, or if for whatever reason I can't meet with you, if you can meet with someone that I work with in my office that can hear from you. I think that's very powerful. I just was meeting with youth advisory leaders on helping young people from getting involved in underage drinking and drug use earlier today up in Lake County, and just encouraging them, the power that young people have to be able to go and meet with their legislators. They can be such a great voice of letting us know what's working and what's not working. So I just, having that connection, having a basic level of wanting to get good information, respect each other, recognizing we're different, but I think it can work and it does work.
The final question, what will you do to protect the rights of people with disabilities in your district?
Well, continue. A big frustration to me is Illinois is 50th in the nation of caring for people with disabilities. That is a real problem. So many of our programs that are focused on helping people with disabilities flow through the state. So a lot of grant money, other things maybe start at the federal government, but flow through the state. But so little is going actually to help people with disabilities. And I think this is such an indictment on all of us, that our state is 50th in the nation. That is unacceptable. That's got to change. I'll continue to fight for people with disabilities, people with special needs, frail elderly, people who absolutely need the help, need someone to come alongside of them, someone to help make sure that they're getting the care that they need. And so I've done that. I'll continue to do that. I want to make sure that programs that are geared for people with disabilities are continuing to be supported. Again, a lot of that is state level stuff, but anything we can do to push on the state to get its act together and make sure that, again, this turns around. We cannot allow this to stand where we're 50th out of 50 of how we care for people with disabilities.
Okay. Thank you very much, Congressman Hultgren. And I will turn it over now to Patty for our final words. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. This was really hard to put together, and I want to thank Representative Hultgren's office. He reached out to us. So I think that says a lot right there. And I know some of you said questions didn't get asked, but we had 250 questions plus, and we really had, with these issue specialists here, they had to really, really put them together. So I want to thank you for your time. And I want to thank Congressman. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much.